Hari Om. Today is a continuation of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, from verse number 20. So, what we have seen so far in this chapter 14, which is where Krishna describes the nature of the three gunas, and he has explained to us the knowledge about sattvic gunas, rajasic gunas, tamasic gunas, and how these three gunas bind the soul to the body. So, every action that we do when we identify with these gunas, when we are bound by the gunas, we identify with this body, and thus we consider ourselves as the doer. Aham karta. So, the word ahamkar, which people say is, which means ego, actually ahamkar means aham karta, the identification with the body, that we are the doer. And when we say, I am the doer, I have done this, I did this, I only did that, then we also become aham bhokta. That is, we expect the results of our actions. And the result may please us or may not be favorable to us also. So, as a result, we are constantly performing actions with that attitude that we are doing, we are the performer, and we incur the punyam and papam, the merits and demerits, and as a result, we are trapped in this continuous cycle of birth and deaths. So, in the last lesson, in verse number 19, Krishna said that to transcend what is moksha, what is self-realization or freedom from this cycle of birth and deaths, is to transcend these three gunas and to identify ourselves as the consciousness, the pure consciousness, that is the witness, non-doer in this body. So that was up to verse number 19. Now we will proceed with verse number 20. So in verse number 20, Krishna says, Atitya. Atitya means having transcended, having disconnected from the three gunas, having disconnected our identification with this body that we are the doer. Lord says, Atitya, having transcended, etan, these three, etan is these, trin gunan, three gunas, meaning all the three we have to transcend, sattva, rajas and tamas. So it is not a physical detachment. We are part and parcel of the body, so we cannot physically detach. It is only because of knowledge. So our attitude goes through a transformation. That is what Lord is saying, that the detachment is not a physical detachment. It's a awakening, a mental understanding of who we are in reality. So the Lord says here, having transcended these three gunas, Deha samudbhavam. Deha samudbhavam. What is the origin, or where do these three gunas exist? Samudbhavam, the very, what we call the origin of these three gunas is the Deha, the body. The body, once the body, mind, etc. takes birth, the three gunas start activating. And it is our identification with these three gunas which causes the problem, which is what we call the barrier to our spiritual growth. So, Deha Samudbhavam, the origin of the three gunas is the body. Okay? Because the body is the equipment, the mind is also the equipment that we use. It is the cause of all our desires that lead to all our actions. So the Lord says, this man of enlightenment, having identified with his higher self, what happens to him? He says he becomes vimukta, free, detached from the daily transactions of life. They don't affect him anymore. It is not that he doesn't go through the ups and downs, but he does not get affected. So he's vimukta, free from what? Janma, birth. So what do you mean by birth here? Birth here means our association with our family, association with our name, our status. So birth brings along all this, and we start to get attached to all this. But the man of realization, knowing that he's not the body, does not get attached to Janma, number one, Mrityu, death. Because death terrifies everybody because we identify with this body. When we think we are this body, then death terrifies us. But this man of realization, having transcended the identification with the body, identifies himself as the pure consciousness in this body, has no fear of death. So he is also beyond any fear of death. Janma, Mrityu. And third one is Jara. Jara means old age. The body, through its natural process, will decay. And that also does not affect the jnani, the realized soul. Dukher. Dukher means all types of sorrows. As a result of us interacting with the world, we experience the pains of daily ups and downs of life with all kinds of transactions of life. So all these Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Dukher, they all belong to the body equipment. They have no connection at all with the Atman. So as long as you consider yourself as Atma and you look upon the body with objectivity, then all the changes of the body a jnani can accept, which is the very nature of the changing body-mind complex. So the jnani does not at all identify with all those changes. So if we take an example, for example, heat in fire is not the problem. As long as we understand it is the nature of fire. Why do we consider heat in fire to be a problem? Because we know it is not a problem, it is the very nature of heat. Similarly, cold in ice is not a problem, it's the nature of the ice. Once we call nature of something as a problem, that's when our troubles begin. So, because there is no remedy, if you complain about problems of old age, you complain about death, disease, these are daily problems that we cannot change. And as long as we complain about them, our sorrow will be eternal. Now, the concept of Vedanta does not remove the mortality from the body. The body will always be mortal. However, dawning of knowledge removes your wrong notion that I am mortal. When you say Aham Atma Asmi, means you accept your immortality. So what happens to such a what you call a realized soul? The Lord says in this verse 20, He says, such a person who has transcended birth, death, old age, disease, asnute, attains amritam, immortality. Meaning, not that he from mortal he became immortal. He was always immortal. It is that now he accepts, he is convinced that he is immortal. So he accepts his state of immortality. So thus he becomes asnute, attains amritam, immortality, lives the life of a Jivan Mukta, which is another name for what we call one who has transcended the three gunas. And another name that Krishna used for this type of person in chapter 2, the closing 18 verses, was Sthita Prajna, a man of steady wisdom. So now, up to verse 20, Krishna has concluded his teachings about the three gunas. And now Arjuna raises a very important question. Three questions Arjuna raises. One is, Arjuna says, Lingam. He uses the word Lingam, Kairlingam. What are the indications to know if I have become a jnani? After I've studied the knowledge, I understand who I am. What are the ways or the what we call the indications to know that I am a jnani, that I have already gone through a transformation? Similar question Arjuna also asked in chapter 2, verse 54, to know what is the nature of a Sthita Prajna. Second question that Arjuna asks here is Kim Achara? How does a jnani conduct himself in the world? Because remember, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna does not teach us knowledge and say, having acquired the knowledge, you run away to a forest and cave and start meditating. No. This knowledge is taught to us how to apply it in life, how to handle the ups and downs of life. So, Kimachara, Arjuna wants to know, how does the Jnani conduct himself? How does he or she respond to the different experiences in life? And finally, Arjuna asks, Katham ativartate? Tell me how to transcend these three gunas. What are the practices which I should do in order to transcend these three gunas? So let us look at this question posed by Arjuna in verse number 21. Arjuna vacha, meaning Arjuna says. What does he say? Kair. Kair means what? Linge. Linge means what are the indications or the behavior. Bhavati, does one exhibit? Who is the person who exhibits this kind of nature? Arjuna says, Atita, the one who has transcended. So I want to know the one who has Atita, the one who has transcended, Etan, these gunas. What is Kairlinge? What are the indications? What is the behavior of such a person? So the purpose is that I can use this as a guide to analyze whether I am progressing in that direction. And he addresses Krishna as Prabhu, O Lord. So, because it is only the Lord who can dispel all the grief and ignorance of his devotees. So Arjuna asked that first question. Second question he asks in verse number 21 is, Kim achara? Kim, what is his achara, behavior, his conduct in life? How does he react to the various situations in life? So does he engage in the world? Does he run away to an ashram? Does he go and hibernate in a cave? What is his behavior? And finally, the third question that Arjuna asks in this verse is, Katham, how does one ativartate, how does one transcend etan, these three gunas? How does one transcend? What are the sadhanas? What are the practices to put in to transcend these three gunas? So, the Lord will now give his answers in the following verses, and we will have a look at these verses now. So, what does the Lord say here? He says in verse number 22. Now, in verse number 22, the Lord, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, meaning the Lord now speaks to answer Arjuna's questions. So, first of all, he says, Prakasham. Prakasham means illumination. What is this illumination? Here the Lord is talking about the effect of the sattvic gunas. In a jnani, the sattvic gunas will be the most strongest. So what will be the outcome or the conduct of the jnani? Prakasham, illumination. That means a jnani, the first thing that therefore we can understand this is that when we listen to any spiritual knowledge, when our mind is very sattvic, we are able to easily absorb and retain the teachings of spiritual knowledge. So this is prakasham. It is the quality of a person who has what we call the nature of a jnani is one who is very much able to receive and absorb knowledge. Prakasham. Cha, the second is pravartim. There is constant activity. It doesn't mean that the jnani only sits down the whole day meditating and chanting. He or she is constantly involved in performing all their duties and responsibilities. So, knowledge does not teach us to run away from our duties and responsibilities, give up everything. No. Arjuna wanted to run away from the battlefield, and Krishna told him, you have to stay and do your duty. But change your attitude. So, pravrtim, there is also constant activity, there is constant carrying out of responsibilities and duties. Cha, and the third is moham. Moham is delusion or sleep, which means the jnani also keeps time for rest and relaxation. So all three are there. There is a thirst for acquiring and absorbing knowledge. There is also activity to do all our duties and responsibilities. And the third is there is also time kept aside to rest, relax, and sleep. So all three are there. But what is predominant is that this receiving and absorbing knowledge. So what is when the effects of the three gunas, Lord says, what happens? Because we must understand that all the three gunas are there. So what happens, the Lord says here, Sampravitani, when the gunas arise in him, the gunas are constantly influencing his personality. So Sampravitani, when these gunas arise in him, are actively working in him, what is his response? Na, he does not dveshti, he does not dislike them. And that means sometimes the effect of the gunas do arise. He does not push them away. Nivartanti, when they disappear, na kankshati, he does not long for them. So he is not basically attached to any particular situation in life. If he is unable to get this knowledge, he does not get frustrated. If he is unable to perform a certain activity, he does not get disturbed. So whatever the activities, the gunas arise and he is unable to accomplish that, he is able to control the effects of the three gunas. So he doesn't follow this, what we call, he doesn't look forward or hanker for something, and if he doesn't get it, then he gets disappointed. And if something is lost from his life, he is not attached to it, he is not disturbed by it. So whether there are pleasant or unpleasant situations, he is not at all affected at all. He understands that it is the gunas that are arising, and therefore he must be a master of the gunas. So why? Because all sorts of situations will arise in life, and this person has got to understand how to control his gunas. So Lord has answered about that in verse number 22. Now in verse number 23, he talks about how a jnani responds to various situations. And there basically can be two types of responses. One is something happens, we are totally unconcerned. We couldn't be bothered. Whatever is happening, we are indifferent, we are careless, inaction. That is a typical tamasic attitude. That is on one extreme. That is, I don't care, I don't want to know, I don't want to get involved. Typically tamasic attitude. On the other extreme is the mind gets disturbed, agitated, prone to impulsive reflex action without any thinking. That is rajasic attitude. So one extreme is inaction, the other extreme is reaction without thinking. But what is a jnani's mind, which has got to give a very healthy response? Right? So what is that? Lord says, Udasina vad. Udasina means not concerned, but Lord has added the word vad, V-A-D, which means as though impartial. So it is not that he is not concerned, but he acts with impartiality. He will make a decision which is impartial. He will not take sides with anyone in a dispute, because he does not favor somebody or disfavor another person. So the Lord says on one side he is udasina vad, as though unconcerned, but what it means is as though he acts in an impartial way. He does not give favoritism to anybody. Yaha, he, the jnani, na vichalyate, is not moved. On the other extreme, he is not shaken, he is not troubled by the gunas. So he remains constantly calm in a situation. Is not indifferent, thinks properly, thinks impartially, and at the same time does not get agitated, carried away, excited, emotional, etc. So this jnani, having transcended the three gunas, the effects of the three gunas, avatishtanti, remains established in his very true identity, that he is the witness, the consciousness in this body. Evam, with this firm conviction, guna vartanta, the gunas vartanta, they exist, they are in my part and parcel of my personality, but the jnani, having transcended, does not get affected or carried away by these gunas. So he says here in this verse, na ingate, he does not swerve, he does not get affected, he does not get carried away. Now, it means that the jnani can have emotions. It's not that the jnani does not have any emotions. He has emotions, but he does not get emotional. He does not let the emotions carry him away and affect his judgment. So he does not act irrationally. So now we come to verse number 24. In verse number 24, the Lord explains whether one becomes a jnani or whether one remains an ignorant person. Both a wise person and an ignorant person will face the same world. The world is not going to change. The same people, the same objects, the same situations are there. But what is different is the response. So now in the next two verses, Krishna will talk about achara, the behavior of the one who has transcended these three gunas also. So what is Krishna's answer? He says samaha. Samaha means one who is even-minded. Through what? Dukkha, sorrow, unfavorable situations. Sukha, happiness or favorable situations. The jnani realizes that all the experiences in life are governed by our own prarabdha karmas. Sukha experiences we go through for what? To exhaust our punyam. So whatever punyam we have, we go through happy, favorable experiences. When we go through happy, favorable experiences, we are exhausting all our punyam, all our merits. And dukkha experiences are to exhaust our papa. So whatever demerits we have to go through all kinds of unfavorable situations. A jnani understands this. He or she remains even-minded in both opposite situations, favorable and unfavorable. So, in good times, a jnani does not get arrogant, does not get proud or egoistical. Unfavorable situation, he does not get dejected, sad or depressed. Another example that Lord gives also, samaha, even-minded, in loshta. Loshta is a lump of earth. Asma is iron. So lump of earth is something which is valueless. Ashma is iron, which has some value. Kanchana is gold, which has the highest value. So what is the attitude of the jnani? Samaha, whether he has loshta, a lump of earth, Ashma, iron or Kanchana. Now, everyone may possess various items in our life which have different levels of material value. However, a jnani does not get carried away or dejected by what he has. Now, I think we will have to stop here because I think the video quality is deteriorating because of the weather situation. So I will stop the video here, and when we resume next, we will take up this explanation of this verse. Hari Om Tat Sat.